about the blood bank, a place where vampires purchase blood from humans dressed in bondage gear. Despite being considered superior, vampires don't hunt humans. Instead, they rely on an entire economy built around the concept of borrowing blood, rather than taking it by force. At the center of the story are two main characters, Shell Overlord, a high-ranking vampire, and one, a human banker. Now, Shell is what's known as an abnormal, a vampire who craves submission. In vampire society, abnormals are looked down as weak, pathetic, and basically the punk-ass bitches of the vampire world. But Shell is even worse. Not only does he want to submit, but he wants to submit to a human, a being his kind sees as weak and inferior. Obviously, this would make him a total disgrace, so he hides it. And even if he wanted to act on it, finding a human willing or even able to dominate him would be impossible. Vampires emit powerful pheromones, a unique scent that triggers overwhelming fear in humans. The reaction is so intense that some humans collapse, or even pass out from sheer terror. But then Shell meets one, and discovers something strange. One is completely immune to his pheromones, and that realization leads to...
Please step on my legs. So, could you slap me? Punish me, senpai!
Sounds interesting so far, right? Well, it is, but it's also kind of a mess. For some reason, one wants no part in this. He only tentatively agrees to Shell's desperate request after Shell buys him a new bike, which honestly doesn't make much sense. I mean, one knew from the start that Shell was rich and powerful. If he was going to fold anyway after getting a gift, why not leverage his new position for a better life? He's taking a serious risk here after all. If other vampires find out about Shell's proclivities, one could lose his job or even be executed. Why that is, I have no idea, because the manhwa never explains it. There's actually a lot of things this manhwa doesn't explain. But whatever, Shell buys one a bike and boom, their master-slave BDSM relationship officially begins. At first, I wasn't a fan of their relationship dynamics. It took a while before it settled into a consistent tone. First off, one is kind of a dick. He belittles Shell, calls him disgusting, and talks down to him to the point where Shell actually starts crying. It's just mean. Like, unnecessarily mean. And Shell acts like he hates it, then acts like he likes it, then he hates it again. The inconsistency was kind of annoying. If they had just established a safe word from the start, I would have been more forgiving of the constant tonal shifts. At first you think Shell is just a pervert who enjoys being dominated, but no, there's more to it. Later on, it's revealed he wants to be dominated by a human because he feels so guilty about what vampires have done to humanity. He thinks he deserves punishment. This makes no sense because he's clearly getting off on it. So, how exactly is this a punishment? The dude lives for this. He even has a whole ass fetish room in his house. A whole ass fetish room. Whole ass fetish room. It feels like I'm saying ass fetish room. Like a room for fetishizing asses. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that the fetish room in his house is large. It's a large fetish room. Also, side note, why is everyone in this manhwa always clomping around? Does no one walk normally? Every time there's a scene with someone walking, it's always clomp, clomp, clomp. Oh wait, I just realized this is clop. Okay, since clop is only used to refer to a horse's footfalls, I think that's the translation mistake and it's supposed to say clomp, so my point still stands. Anyway, everything seems to be going fine-ish, until one walks in on Shell kissing another vampire. Dun dun dun. That vampire is Rain Fear, Shell's childhood friend and fellow abnormal. Side note, this whole concept of abnormal vampires makes no sense to me. If 90% of the vampires feel the need to only dominate, then how are they finding partners? It seems like a taboo for vampires to sleep with humans unless that human is an art, aka a human juice box. More on that later. So, how are the regular blue-collar vampires finding a partner? In this world, vampires are not created like in every other horror story. Instead, they're born through a consummation between a male and female vampire. So, riddle me this, how does that work if both of them want to be the dominant one? Okay, sorry for the tangent. Back to what I was talking about before. Rain is actually there to propose to Shell. The two have been friends since childhood, but Rain has no idea that Shell is an abnormal. So, what does Shell do? After one convinces him it would be a good political move, he agrees. Rain's family controls the East, and this political alliance would strengthen Shell's power. Logical enough, right? Except, right after agreeing, Shell immediately tries to get out of the proposal by revealing his abnormality. Dude, why did you agree in the first place if you were just gonna sabotage it from the start? It ends up working as a heartbroken Rain leaves the room, causing Shell to have a panic attack because he feels like his one and only friend just abandoned him. And then one, who was hiding and listening the whole time, goes over to Shell and is mad at him for showing Rain he's an abnormal, even though, are you ready for this? It was one's idea to begin with. Another one of the many moments in this manhwa that make zero sense. And speaking of things not making sense, remember when I said vampires borrow blood? That's the foundation of their entire economy? But what exactly are they borrowing it against? What's the collateral? The manhwa never explains it. The blood banks are controlled by the richest 1% of vampires, known as the Bloodlords. However, it wasn't always like that. In the distant past, they did at one point hunt humans, but then there was an extinction level disaster. A huge fireball had engulfed the world, leaving only darkness and cold. Which, wouldn't a fireball engulfing the world make it bright and hot? But okay, let's go with dark and cold. Anyways, thanks to the appearance of the gracious and benevolent vampires, humanity was able to move on. How did the vampires stop the giant fireball? Through their vast knowledge and vitality, as well as their pheromones. No other explanation given. Even in universe, this doesn't make sense. It seems like all pheromones are really used for is putting fear into other living creatures. So, how the fuck can their pheromones get rid of a giant fireball? Also, why would they sign a non-aggression treaty when they're the ones that saved humanity? It makes so little sense that I'm wondering if the whole thing is a lie that the rich 1%er vampires cooked up in order to control the world's blood supply. Because they're the only ones that really benefit from this whole arrangement. Regular blue-collar vampires have to get their blood from them after all. Also, it seems like vampires don't need blood to survive. They can eat regular meals and drink animal blood, though it's not ideal. Also, remember when I said that pheromones are used for putting living creatures in a state of fear, and that's how the 1%er vampires keep all the other vampires in line? Well, it seems like strong pheromones don't correlate to actual physical strength. So, couldn't vampires with shitty pheromones train, get super jacked, and then just start taking shit over? Moreover, couldn't some humans do the same thing? And if all they have to get over is being afraid, then why don't they do some sort of exposure therapy and then just rise up? Vampires in this story don't have super strength, and they don't have a healing factor. I think all they can really do is see in the dark and they have sharp teeth. So theoretically, I think if the humans want to, they can absolutely rise up. There is a human resistance movement, but it consists of only 2 people. And we don't really learn much about what they were doing to resist, even when we end up meeting them later in the story. And these things, all these things I just listed off, are my biggest issue with Blood Bank, the half-assed world building. The whole premise is so interesting to me. I want to learn more about the vampires, their politics, their power levels, the daily life of regular working class vampires, and I want to learn more about the humans, the ones that aren't lucky enough to work for the bourgeoisie. I want to learn more about their dystopian society, their hierarchies, their culture. Now, I get you might be thinking, who cares about that? It's just mindless smut. And yeah, sure, it's just mindless smut, but wait, no it's not, because around halfway through, the story sprays hot plot all over our faces. Around chapter 20-something, a sus-looking curator named Jack shows up and guilts Shell into renting an art. It's not really explained what an art is until later, and it's not explained all that well, if I'm being honest. An art is basically a shoda that the bourgeois vampires keep around to drink from and do unspeakable things to. This one is named Cinderella, because why not? He's there to spy on Shell and see if he has any weaknesses. And because One and Shell are so bad at being discreet, Cinderella immediately discovers their secret. But One catches him spying on them. Yoink! So he's like, what the fuck, bro? And then he ties the Shota up with bondage rope, which was just... unfortunate. Shell walks in on One questioning him, and with almost zero coercion, gets the kid to spill the real reason he's there. Then for some reason, Shell decides to tell the kid he's an abnormal. Which, why would you do that? There was literally no need, and it seemed like a really, 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 really dumb idea. But who knows, maybe Shell is playing 4D chess, and the unenlightened such as myself can't see the brilliant move he has in store, because that is the only way his little reveal would make any sense. The kid cries and begs for Shell to buy him so Jack won't murder him. Because he's a nice guy, Shell agrees. So here's where I thought this kid was going to be around for a while. I mean, he was sent there by an enemy, and now he has extremely dangerous information floating around in his head. Plus, the curator dude that brought him there seems to have no issue popping in and out of Shell's house whenever he wants. So, logically, you'd think Shell would keep him close to protect him. Right? Right? Well, you'd be wrong. Dead wrong, in fact. That same day, he sends Cinderella to a new house far, far away and tells him to live freely. No bodyguards or anything to speak of. So, of course, on the way there, Jack catches up, stabs him, and drags him away. But oh, who could have possibly seen that coming? At this point, you'd think, oh wow, him being an abnormal is going to play a huge part in the story, because now the bad guys are going to have this information. Nope. I don't think Jack does anything with that. Actually, I'm not even sure whether or not Cinderella told him. But considering how quickly he spilled everything to one Shell, something tells me he's not a very good secret keeper. Because he's worried about Shell, one tells him he'll be accompanying him to an upcoming party so he can keep an eye on him. So they won't stand out, Shell decides to take one to a store to buy him clothes that will disguise him as an art. This would have been a perfect time to do a tiny bit of world building and showcase the in-universe economy by showing how the fuck they pay for things. Do they pay with blood, or is there some other form of currency? I'm dying to know. Honestly, I would have preferred that over the smut, which is what we got. And yes, I know I'm in the vast minority here. That being said, it was, in my opinion, the best smut scene thus far. Anyways, moving right along. So, one accompanies Shell to the party to protect him. However, a big reason he's there is to find a vampire that's wearing the same symbol as the one on his pocket watch. A pocket watch that, even though it seems very important, was only mentioned in passing once, maybe twice before now. So, he does happen to spot a vampire wearing a similar symbol, and that vampire is none other than Brutal Bones, enemy of the Overlord family. Jesus, man, what is with these ridiculous names? You've got Shell's father, whose name is Pain Overlord, you've got Brutal Bones, Rain Fear. Well, okay, I kind of like that last one, kind of, but the other two are ridiculous. They sound like parody names. I can forgive the author since this work is originally in Korean, but if this was an American comic, I probably would have stopped reading almost immediately because of all these goofy ass names. Anyway, one follows BB and sees a bunch of vampires running a train on BB's familiar, whose name is Humpty Dumpty for some reason. Apparently, all the arts are named after characters from old literature. By the way, I just want to mention HD is 39, so not a Shota, even though he looks like one. So, at this point in the manhwa, when one meets Humpty Dumpty, the story shifts massively. It's no longer a silly BDSM about two lovable idiots. Now, even though it still has its fair share of nonsense, the next half of the manhwa with Humpty Dumpty is arguably the most interesting, craziest, and badass part of the story. But I'll be going over that second part in another video because I feel like this one is getting too long as it is. But to summarize, even though I have a lot of criticisms, I still really did enjoy Blood Bank. I would have loved to see the writer go harder into the plot and world building. There's just too many things that are left up to audience interpretation. I would have really liked to learn more about the inner workings of their political system and the day-to-day lives of regular vampires and humans. As far as the characters go, even if their motivations and actions didn't always make sense, I still like Shell and One, and found them to be entertaining, albeit slightly nonsensical. So, if you're looking for a spicy vampire BL with questionable logic but entertaining drama, Blood Bank might just be for you. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more manhwa reviews and my upcoming part 2 on Blood Bank.